The massive alien ship moved through space like a silver mountain floating among the stars. Its hull gleamed under the distant sun as it approached the small blue planet called Earth. Inside the ship, tall creatures with purple skin and 4 arms walked through bright corridors. Their leader was Commander Zixthala, a being who had lived for over 300 years and seen many worlds across the galaxy. "Scan the planet again," Zixthala ordered with a voice that sounded like grinding stones. The science officer pressed buttons on a control panel that glowed with strange symbols. Numbers and pictures appeared on screens around the bridge. "The humans are still fighting wars on their surface," reported the science officer. "They use primitive weapons that explode and shoot metal pieces. Their cities release toxic gases into their air. Many of them die from diseases that we cured centuries ago." Zixthala nodded slowly. "These creatures called humans seem so weak and foolish. They lived for only about 80 years, which was like a brief moment compared to his own long life. Their bodies had no natural armor, no claws, no poison glands. They could not even breathe underwater or survive in extreme cold without special equipment. How do they expect to join the Galactic Coalition when they cannot even stop fighting each other?" asked another officer. The Coalition was a group of advanced alien species that worked together across the galaxy. They shared technology, protected each other from enemies, and explored new worlds together. The alien ship moved closer to Earth until it reached a small space station orbiting the moon. This station was called Luna Station, and it was where humans conducted their most advanced research. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at a large window watching the alien vessel approach. She was a scientist who studied life forms from other planets, though she had never seen a real alien until today. "They are so much bigger than we expected," said Captain Jake Morrison, standing beside her. He commanded Earth's defense forces and wore a blue uniform covered with medals. His job was to protect Earth from any threats, but today he hoped to make friends instead of enemies. The alien ship connected to Luna Station with a tube-like bridge. Air pressure balanced between the two vessels with a loud hissing sound. Then, the airlock doors opened, and the first alien stepped onto the human station. Commander Zixthala had to duck his head to fit through the doorway. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, and his purple skin had a rough texture like tree bark. His 4 arms moved in graceful patterns as he walked, and his large black eyes looked around the station with obvious disappointment. "Welcome to Luna Station," said Dr. Rodriguez in the alien language she had learned from radio transmissions. She had practiced the words many times, but they still sounded clumsy coming from her human mouth. "Your translation is adequate," replied Zixthala, though his tone suggested he was not impressed. "We have come to evaluate your species for possible membership in the Galactic Coalition." Captain Morrison stepped forward and saluted in military fashion. "We are honored by your visit, Commander. Earth stands ready to prove itself worthy of joining your great alliance." The alien commander studied the human captain for a long moment. Morrison was a strong man by human standards, but next to Zixthala he looked small and fragile. The alien skin could probably stop bullets, while the human skin could be cut by a sharp piece of paper. "Show us your technology," demanded Zixthala. "Show us your weapons, your ships, your medical advances." Dr. Rodriguez led the aliens through Luna Station, pointing out various human achievements. She showed them the fusion reactors that powered the station, the computers that could process millions of calculations per second, and the medical bay where human doctors performed complex surgeries. But the aliens seemed unimpressed by everything they saw. When Dr. Rodriguez explained how humans had cured many diseases, Zixthala mentioned that his people had solved those same problems 500 years ago. When Captain Morrison demonstrated human weapons, the aliens barely glanced at them before declaring them primitive and weak. "Your species is very young," said Science Officer Quindal, examining a human computer. "You have achieved basic space, travel, and simple energy production, but you lack the biological advantages necessary for serious galactic citizenship." "What do you mean?" asked Dr. Rodriguez. "You are soft and weak," explained Quindal matter-of-factly. "Your bones break easily, your skin tears from minor impacts, and you die if the temperature gets too hot or too cold. Most concerning is your short lifespan. How can you contribute to long-term galactic projects when you barely live long enough to understand them? Captain Morrison felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced himself to remain diplomatic. Humans may not be physically powerful, but we are intelligent and determined. We have survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and countless wars. We adapt to challenges that would destroy other species. Zixthala made a sound that might have been laughter. Survival and military capability are different things, Captain. The galaxy is a dangerous place filled with ruthless enemies. Your people would be slaughtered in the first real battle they encountered. The aliens spent 3 days examining human volunteers, testing their strength, speed, and endurance. They brought soldiers like Sergeant Alex Chen and scientists like Dr. Karen White through a series of physical and mental challenges. The results confirmed what the aliens already believed about human limitations. Their muscle density is pathetic, reported the alien medical officer. Their reaction times are slow, and their emotional responses are wildly unstable. They seem to make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. Perhaps they could serve as researchers or laborers, suggested Quindal. Their small size might be useful for detailed work that larger beings cannot perform. Commander Zixthala considered this suggestion while looking out at Earth through the station windows. The blue and green planet looked beautiful but fragile, much like the creatures who lived on its surface. He had seen many worlds and many species during his long career, and humans seemed among the weakest he had ever encountered. We will complete our evaluation and return to the Coalition Council with our recommendations, Zixthala announced. Do not expect immediate membership. Your species needs much more development before it can contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization. As the aliens prepared to leave Luna Station, Dr. Rodriguez felt a deep sadness. She had hoped this first contact would be the beginning of a great friendship between humans and the galactic community. Instead, it seemed humans were being dismissed as inferior creatures barely worth notice. Captain Morrison watched the alien ship disappear into the darkness of space. He had spent his entire career protecting Earth from imagined threats, never knowing that the greatest challenge would be proving humanity deserved respect from beings who saw them as nothing more than clever animals. 3 months passed after the aliens left Earth, and news traveled slowly across the vast distances between stars. Commander Zixthala sat in the Great Council chamber on the Coalition capital world of Nexus Prime. The chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in circles that rose toward a domed ceiling, painted with star charts from across the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the chamber. The Korthak Empire sent their greatest warriors, beings that looked like walking mountains covered in black armor. The Nexus Collective brought their most brilliant scientists, creatures with large brains housed in mechanical bodies. The Viridian Empire, which Zixthala represented, sat alongside many other advanced civilizations. The humans show some promise, Zixthala reported to the council, but they are too weak and primitive for full membership at this time. War Marshal Grixtar of the Korthak Empire stood up from his massive chair. He was 12 feet tall and his armor was covered with scars from countless battles. When he spoke, his voice boomed across the chamber like thunder. I have reviewed the human assessment files, Grixtar announced. These creatures are pathetic. Their weapons barely qualify as dangerous toys. Their soldiers would break like dry sticks in real combat. Why are we even discussing them? Counselor Vextra from the Nexus Collective projected holographic images of human technology into the center of the chamber. The images showed human spaceships, weapons, and cities, all of which looked crude compared to Coalition technology. Humans have achieved basic industrialization, Vextra explained in a mechanical voice. But their advancement rate is extremely slow. At their current pace of development, they will not reach minimal Coalition standards for at least 200 years. Other council members nodded in agreement. The Zephyrian delegate, a being made of crystalline structures, chimed like wind through glass. Their emotional instability makes them unsuitable for diplomatic relations. They wage war over resources that could be easily shared. But not everyone in the chamber was discussing humans. A much more serious threat demanded their attention. Reports had been arriving from the Outer Rim worlds about attacks by something called the Crimson Fleet. This was not a single alien species, but a collection of pirates, raiders, and criminals from many different worlds who had joined together, under a ruthless leader. "The Crimson Fleet has struck again," announced Intelligence Chief Mordan, a spider-like creature with multiple eyes. "They destroyed the mining colony on Kepler 186F completely. No survivors. They took everything valuable and left the rest burning." The council chamber fell silent. The Crimson Fleet had been growing bolder over the past year, attacking isolated worlds and merchant ships. But destroying an entire colony was an escalation that could not be ignored. Admiral Corvex of the Coalition Navy stood to address the council. His species looked like giant squids that walked upright, with tentacles that moved constantly as he spoke. "The Crimson Fleet now controls 7 star systems. Their leader, a creature called the Butcher of Proxima, commands over 300 warships." "How is this possible?" demanded Grixtar. "Our technology is superior to anything these pirates possess. They fight differently than we do," admitted Admiral Corvex. "They use suicide attacks, target civilian populations, and show no mercy to prisoners. Our forces are trained for honorable combat between military units. These pirates fight like wild animals." The council debated their response for hours. The Korthak wanted to send their battle fleets immediately to crush the pirates with overwhelming force. The Nexus Collective preferred a more cautious approach, studying the enemy before attacking. The Viridians suggested negotiating with the pirate leaders to find a peaceful solution. While the aliens argued, a message arrived from Earth. Admiral Roy Patterson of Earth's Stellar Navy had learned about the Crimson Fleet attacks through intercepted communications. His message was direct and simple. "Earth stands ready to assist Coalition forces against this pirate threat. We offer our complete military support." When Zixthala read this message to the council, many of the aliens made sounds that resembled laughter. The idea of humans helping them fight seemed absurd. "What could they possibly contribute?" asked War Marshal Grixtar with obvious amusement. "Their largest warships are smaller than our supply vessels. Their weapons could not even scratch our armor, let alone damage pirate ships." Admiral Corvex studied the human offer more seriously. "They have 23 combat vessels and approximately 10,000 trained soldiers. These numbers are insignificant compared to our forces. Their soldiers would panic at the first sight of real violence," added Counselor Vextra. "Humans are emotionally fragile. They cannot handle the stress of space combat." The council voted unanimously to decline Earth's offer of assistance. They sent a polite reply thanking humans for their concern, but explaining that this was a matter for more advanced civilizations to handle. On Earth, Admiral Patterson read the Coalition's response with growing frustration. He had fought in wars on 3 different continents and commanded fleets in the asteroid belt conflicts. The idea that aliens considered him and his forces inadequate was insulting. "They think we're too weak to fight alongside them," Patterson told his staff officers during a meeting in the Pentagon. "They see us as children playing with toys." Captain Ben Clark, one of Patterson's most experienced officers, studied intelligence reports about the Crimson Fleet. "Sir, these pirates are using tactics that would have been familiar to military commanders on Earth centuries ago. They attack supply lines, target civilians, and use psychological warfare." "Exactly," agreed Colonel Sam Rodriguez, who commanded Earth's elite Marine units. "The aliens fight like gentlemen at a formal duel. These pirates fight like street gangs, with spaceships." Ambassador Tony Martinez had been Earth's representative to the Coalition since first contact. He sent urgent messages to Nexus Prime warning that the aliens were making a serious mistake. "Do not underestimate any species based on appearance or technology level," Martinez wrote. "Humans have survived and thrived in conditions that would destroy most other life forms. We understand warfare in ways that peaceful civilizations may have forgotten." His warnings were ignored. The Coalition continued preparing their own military response while dismissing human offers of help as irrelevant. The Coalition fleet that assembled to fight the Crimson Fleet was magnificent. Over 500 warships from a dozen different species gathered at the staging area near Vega. Their combined firepower could destroy planets, and their defensive systems seemed impenetrable. Admiral Korvex commanded the fleet from his flagship, a vessel 3 miles long and armed with weapons that could crack moons in half. He felt confident that the pirates would surrender as soon as they saw the size of the force assembled against them. War Marshal Grixtar brought 200 Korthak battlecruisers, each one crewed by warriors who had trained for combat since childhood. The Nexus Collective contributed ships equipped with the most advanced technology in known space. Other coalition members added their own vessels to create an armada that had never been seen before in galactic history. The fleet jumped to hyperspace and headed for the Crimson Fleet stronghold in the Proxima system. Intelligence reports indicated that the pirates had about 150 ships, which meant the coalition forces outnumbered them more than 3-1. But when the coalition fleet arrived at Proxima, they discovered that the pirates had anticipated their attack. The Crimson Fleet had positioned their ships among the asteroid fields and debris clouds that surrounded the system's dead planets. They used the cover to launch surprise attacks on isolated coalition vessels. The pirates also employed tactics that shocked the civilized coalition forces. They sent ships loaded with explosives to ram coalition vessels, sacrificing themselves to damage larger ships. They targeted medical vessels and supply ships, forcing coalition commanders to divert combat vessels to protect non-military targets. Most disturbing of all, the pirates broadcast recordings of captured coalition prisoners being tortured and killed. These psychological warfare tactics disrupted coalition communications and demoralized their forces. The Battle of Proxima lasted 6 days and ended in complete disaster for the coalition. Over 200 coalition ships were destroyed or severely damaged. Thousands of trained military personnel were killed, and entire units of elite forces were wiped out. Admiral Korvex barely escaped with his flagship intact. His report to the Coalition Council was grim and humiliating. The enemy fought without honor or restraint, he reported. They used our own moral standards against us, knowing we would not target civilian areas or use prisoner torture as a weapon. We were unprepared for their savagery. The defeat sent shockwaves throughout coalition space. For the first time in centuries, their military superiority had been challenged and found wanting. Panic spread through the core worlds as citizens realized they were no longer safe from external threats. Emergency sessions of the Coalition Council convened on Nexus Prime. The great chamber that had once echoed with confident speeches now filled with urgent whispers and fearful debates. The Crimson Fleet was expanding rapidly, conquering defeated coalition worlds and growing stronger with each victory. The news of the coalition's defeat reached Earth through intercepted communications and desperate refugee ships fleeing the war zone. In the Global Defense Council chambers in Geneva, world leaders gathered around a massive holographic display showing the latest intelligence reports. The Crimson Fleet has conquered 4 more systems since Proxima, reported General Patricia Hayes, Earth's highest-ranking military officer. Coalition resistance is collapsing faster than anyone thought possible. Admiral Roy Patterson studied the tactical data with the eyes of a veteran commander. He had spent 40 years in Earth's military, fighting conflicts that ranged from counterterrorism operations to full-scale planetary wars. The Coalition's defeat did not surprise him as much as it surprised the aliens themselves. They fought like they were conducting a parade, Patterson observed grimly. Perfect formations, textbook maneuvers, and complete adherence to rules of engagement. The pirates fought like they wanted to win. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had been monitoring coalition communications since the disaster at Proxima. Many of the messages were scrambled or coded, but the desperation in alien voices was unmistakable. Commander Zixathala sent a general distress signal to all coalition member worlds, she reported. They are requesting immediate military assistance from anyone willing to help. President Maria Santos of Earth's unified government leaned back in her chair. The same aliens who had dismissed humanity as weak and primitive were now begging for help from anyone who would listen. They ignored our offer 3 months ago, President Santos reminded the council. They said we were too weak to contribute to their military operations. Ambassador Tony Martinez had been Earth's voice in galactic affairs since first contact. He understood the politics involved, but he also understood the moral implications of the current crisis. Millions of innocent beings are dying while we debate pride and politics, Martinez argued. Yes, they insulted us. Yes, they treated us like inferior creatures. But if we have the power to help and we choose not to act, what does that make us? Admiral Patterson stood up and activated a star chart showing the current military situation. Red markers indicated Crimson Fleet positions, while blue markers showed remaining coalition forces. The pattern was clear and disturbing. The pirates are advancing toward the core worlds, Patterson explained. If they take Nexus Prime, the entire coalition government will collapse. After that, they will have access to the most advanced technology in the galaxy. And eventually they will come for Earth, added General Hayes quietly. If the Crimson Fleet controls coalition space, we will be next on their target list. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. Earth had been preparing for galactic conflicts since first contact with the coalition. Their military forces were small compared to alien standards, but they were battle-tested and ready for deployment. President Santos made the final decision. Admiral Patterson, prepare Earth's fleet for immediate deployment. We will answer the ID Coalition's distress call whether they want our help or not. Within 72 hours, Earth's entire space-capable military force was assembled at Luna Station. The fleet consisted of 25 warships, ranging from the massive flagship EDS Defiant to smaller frigates and assault carriers. Compared to coalition vessels, human ships were tiny and primitive-looking, but they were built for war rather than ceremony. Admiral Patterson transferred his flag to the Defiant and placed Captain Ben Clark in operational command of the ship. Clark was a veteran of the Martian mining wars and had commanded vessels in more than 30 combat engagements. The crew understands this is likely a one-way mission, Clark reported during the final briefing. Coalition forces are retreating. On all fronts, we may be flying into a battle we cannot win. We have been fighting battles we could not win for thousands of years, replied Admiral Patterson. Somehow we keep winning them anyway. The assault carrier EDS Thunderbolt carried Earth's Marine Expeditionary Force under the command of Colonel Sam Rodriguez. These were the best soldiers Earth could produce, veterans of conflicts on 6 different worlds and 3 different asteroid colonies. Colonel Rodriguez walked through the troop compartments where his Marines were making final preparations for combat. Sergeant Major Lisa Thompson was checking weapons and equipment for the 3rd time, while Staff Sergeant Mike Johnson reviewed intelligence files about Crimson Fleet tactics. "What do you think, Sergeant Major?" asked Colonel Rodriguez. "Are we crazy for volunteering to fight aliens who defeated the coalition?" Thompson looked up from her plasma rifle with a grin that had intimidated enemies across the solar system. "Sir, we have been called crazy for every major operation since the Korean War. It has not stopped us from getting the job done." The human fleet jumped to hyperspace and headed for the besieged world of Altair Prime. Intelligence reports indicated that coalition survivors were making their last stand there, while Crimson Fleet forces prepared for a final assault. During the 3-day journey through hyperspace, human crews studied everything they could learn about their enemies. The Crimson Fleet used ships from dozens of different species, which meant their technology was inconsistent, but their tactics were unpredictable. Dr. Karen White, now serving as the fleet's xenobiologist, analyzed recordings of Crimson Fleet communications. Unlike the formal military protocols used by coalition forces, the pirates communicated in crude slang and made frequent references to violence and intimidation. "They treat warfare like a blood sport," Dr. White reported to Admiral Patterson. "They seem to enjoy causing fear and suffering as much as they enjoy winning battles." When the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at Altair Prime, they found a system in chaos. The planet's orbital defense platforms were destroyed, and debris from coalition ships floated throughout the inner system. Crimson Fleet vessels moved in aggressive patterns around the planet, bombarding the surface where coalition survivors had established defensive positions. Admiral Patterson opened communications with the coalition forces on the planet. Commander Zixathala's image appeared on the main screen, and the alien leader looked exhausted and defeated. His purple skin had lost its healthy color, and his forearms moved with obvious pain. "Admiral Patterson," Zixathala said with surprise, We did not expect Earth forces to respond to our distress calls. We are here to help, Patterson replied simply. What is your tactical situation? Hopeless, Zixthala admitted. We have 3,000 coalition personnel trapped in the northern continent. The pirates have complete control of orbital space and are preparing for a ground assault. Captain Nina Foster, commanding the EDS Thunderbolt, studied the enemy formations through her ship's sensors. The Crimson Fleet had positioned their vessels to prevent any rescue attempts while maintaining constant bombardment of the surface. Sir, they have 47 ships in orbit, Foster reported to Admiral Patterson. Our entire fleet is outnumbered, almost 2 to 1. Have you ever known us to be deterred by unfavorable odds? Asked Admiral Patterson with a slight smile. The human fleet moved into attack formation, with the Defiant leading 12 combat vessels toward the Crimson Fleet positions. The smaller human ships looked insignificant compared to the massive pirate vessels, but appearances could be misleading. Coalition forces are requesting we coordinate our attack with their defensive plans, reported the Defiant's communications officer. Negative, replied Admiral Patterson. We fight our own way. This decision puzzled the coalition survivors watching from the planet's surface. Human tactics did not follow any military doctrine they understood. Instead of forming battle lines or conducting organized maneuvers, the human ships scattered in random patterns and began attacking from multiple directions simultaneously. Captain Clark's ship dove through the outer edge of the Crimson Fleet formation, firing plasma bolts and missile salvos at enemy vessels before disappearing into the asteroid belt that surrounded Altair Prime. Other human ships followed similar hit-and-run tactics, striking quickly and then retreating before the pirates could organize effective counterattacks. The Crimson Fleet commanders had expected another conventional battle like their victory at Proxima. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to follow standard military procedures. Human. Ships appeared from unexpected directions, targeted unusual objectives, and disappeared before retaliation was possible. What are these creatures doing? Demanded Captain Scaroth of the pirate flagship Blooddrinker. They fight like insects, swarming and stinging without purpose. But the human attacks did have purpose, though that purpose was not immediately obvious to alien observers. Each strike weakened specific enemy systems or isolated particular pirate vessels from their supporting units. Admiral Patterson was conducting a campaign of psychological warfare designed to create confusion and fear among enemy commanders. Meanwhile, Colonel Rodriguez prepared his Marines for the most dangerous part of the operation. While the space battle distracted the Crimson Fleet, human ground forces would attempt to reach the besieged coalition survivors and establish a defensive perimeter. Remember, we are not trying to win a glorious victory, Rodriguez told his troops during the final briefing. The Battle of Altair Prime began at dawn on the planet's northern continent, where 3,000 coalition survivors had established defensive positions in the ruins of what had once been a thriving research facility. Commander Zixthala watched from his command bunker as human assault shuttles descended through the atmosphere while pirate forces prepared their final attack. The human ships are too small, observed Science Officer Quindell, monitoring the approaching shuttles on his sensors. Each one carries perhaps 30 soldiers. How can 90 humans make any difference against 10,000 pirates? Zixthala had been wondering the same thing, but he had learned not to underestimate any species completely. The humans had traveled across vast distances of space to help beings who had previously rejected them. That kind of determination suggested they might be more capable than their physical appearance indicated. Colonel Rodriguez's Marines landed, under heavy enemy fire, with pirate artillery shells exploding around their shuttles before the landing ramps even lowered. Staff Sergeant Johnson was the first human to set foot on alien soil, and immediately had to dive for cover as plasma bolts sizzled overhead. "Welcome to Altair Prime," shouted Sergeant Major Thompson over the sound of explosions. "Try not to get killed in the first 5 minutes." The human landing zone was a crater-filled wasteland between the coalition defensive positions and the advancing pirate army. Most military commanders would have considered it an impossible position to defend, but human Marines had been trained to fight in impossible positions. Private Danny Moore crouched behind a destroyed vehicle and tried to spot enemy targets through the smoke and dust. The pirates were advancing in a massive wave, thousands of different alien creatures armed with various weapons and moving without any apparent organization. "They fight like a mob," Moore observed to Johnson, who was setting up a heavy machine gun nearby. "Mobs can be dangerous if there are enough of them," Johnson replied, loading ammunition into his weapon. "But they break easily once you start hurting them." The first human defensive line established itself in the ruins of a collapsed building. Coalition observers were amazed to see how quickly the Marines adapted to alien terrain and unfamiliar conditions. They used rubble to create firing positions, set up interlocking fields of fire, and established communication networks without any assistance from coalition forces. When the pirate assault began, it became clear that the Crimson Fleet had never encountered enemies like human Marines. The pirates had grown accustomed to fighting coalition forces that relied heavily on advanced technology and followed predictable tactical doctrines. Human soldiers fought differently. When their high-tech weapons malfunctioned, they switched to backup systems or improvised alternatives. When their communication equipment failed, they used hand signals and voice commands. When their defensive positions were overrun, they fell back to secondary lines and continued fighting. Sergeant Major Thompson's squad found themselves surrounded when pirate forces broke through on their left flank. Instead of surrendering or retreating in panic, the Marines formed a defensive circle and continued engaging enemies from all directions. "Thompson, you are cut off," Colonel Rodriguez radioed from the command post. "Can you reach the rally point?" "Negative, sir," Thompson replied while firing at approaching pirates. "We are having too much fun here." For 6 hours, Thompson's 12-person squad held off over 200 pirate attackers. They used every trick learned from decades of urban warfare: booby traps made from scavenged materials, sniper positions in unexpected locations, and psychological tactics designed to demoralize enemies. The pirates had expected easy victory against a handful of primitive humans. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed impossible to defeat. Every time they thought they had eliminated human resistance, more Marines appeared from hidden positions to continue the battle. Coalition observers monitoring the battle could not understand what they were seeing. Human soldiers were displaying levels of endurance, adaptability, and determination that exceeded anything in their experience. "How are they still fighting?" asked Quindal in amazement. "Their casualties exceed 50%. Their ammunition is nearly exhausted, and they are outnumbered 50-1. "They do not seem to understand that they are supposed to retreat," replied Zixthala, with something that might have been respect. The space battle above the planet was equally confusing to alien participants. Human naval tactics bore no resemblance to accepted military doctrine, yet they were proving devastatingly effective against Crimson Fleet forces. Captain Ben Clark's ship, the EDS Defiant, had been engaging pirate vessels in a running battle through the asteroid field surrounding Altair Prime. Coalition observers expected the small human ship to be destroyed quickly, but instead it seemed to be leading larger pirate vessels into carefully prepared ambush positions. "Pirates' vessels are pursuing the human flagship," reported Admiral Corvex from his surviving coalition ship. "They are being drawn away from their defensive formation." What the coalition officers could not see was that Captain Clark was executing a complex tactical maneuver that human naval commanders had perfected during the Solar Wars. By appearing to retreat while actually controlling the enemy's movement, he was positioning pirate ships where they could be attacked most effectively. "Enemy flagship is following us into the asteroid cluster," reported Clark's tactical officer. "Range is decreasing to optimal engagement distance." "Fire all weapons," ordered Captain Clark. The Defiant suddenly reversed course and opened fire with every weapon system it possessed. At close range, human plasma cannons and missile launchers proved devastatingly effective against pirate armor that had been designed to withstand attacks from much greater distances. The pirate flagship Blooddrinker was caught completely off guard by this unexpected maneuver. Captain Skaroth had been anticipating an easy victory against the small human vessel, but instead found his ship suffering critical damage from point-blank weapons fire. "Impossible!" Skaroth roared in his native language. "How can such tiny creatures fight so effectively?" Other human ships were executing similar tactics throughout the battle area. Captain Nina Foster's assault carrier EDS Thunderbolt had been pretending to flee while actually positioning itself to attack the pirate communication relay ships. When she struck, the entire Crimson Fleet lost coordination between their vessels. But the most shocking moment of the battle came when Staff Sergeant Johnson's Marine unit accomplished something that coalition forces had believed impossible. Cut off behind enemy lines and running low on ammunition, Johnson led his squad in a desperate assault on the pirate command center. "Sir, we have an opportunity to take out their ground commander," Johnson radioed to Colonel Rodriguez. "Permission to attempt infiltration." "Negative, Sergeant," Rodriguez replied. "You do not have sufficient forces for that mission." "Roger that, sir," Johnson acknowledged. Then he turned to his squad and said, "You heard the colonel, boys. We do not have sufficient forces. Let us go do it anyway." Using stealth explosives and pure audacity, Johnson's 8-person squad penetrated the heavily defended pirate headquarters. They moved through maintenance tunnels, service corridors, and ventilation shafts to reach the command center where the pirate ground commander was coordinating the assault. The pirates never expected such a small force to attempt such an ambitious mission. Their security was designed to stop large-scale assaults, not infiltration by a handful of determined soldiers. Johnson's squad eliminated the pirate command staff with precisely placed explosives and small arms fire. The loss of leadership created immediate confusion throughout the pirate ground forces, allowing coalition survivors and human marines to launch a coordinated counterattack. "The enemy is retreating," reported Commander Zixathala with amazement. "Somehow, the humans have broken their assault." In space, the destruction of the pirate flagship and communication ships had created similar chaos among Crimson Fleet vessels. Without central coordination, individual pirate captains began making independent decisions about whether to continue fighting or retreat to safer positions. Admiral Patterson seized the opportunity to press his advantage. Human ships that had been conducting hit-and-run attacks suddenly coordinated their efforts for a massive combined assault on the remaining pirate vessels. "All ships, execute attack. Pattern Delta," Patterson ordered over the fleet communication network. Attack Pattern Delta was a human tactical formation that concentrated maximum firepower on selected enemy targets, while maintaining mobility to avoid retaliation. It was a maneuver that had been developed during Earth's colonial wars and refined through decades of combat experience. The result was devastating. Pirate vessels that had seemed invincible just hours earlier found themselves overwhelmed by coordinated attacks from an enemy they had dismissed as primitive and weak. Captain Skaroth, barely escaping in a damaged shuttle after his flagship was destroyed, sent a desperate message to Crimson Fleet headquarters. "Do not underestimate the humans," he warned. "They fight like demons and show no fear of death. These creatures are more dangerous than any enemy we have ever encountered." By the end of the day, Altair Prime was secure. Word of the victory at Altair Prime spread throughout coalition space faster than most governments could control the information. Reports described how a small human fleet had defeated Crimson Fleet forces that had previously crushed much larger coalition armadas. The implications were staggering for alien species that had dismissed humanity as weak and primitive. On Nexus Prime, the Coalition Council held emergency sessions to discuss these unexpected developments. The Great Chamber that had once echoed with confident dismissals of human military capability now filled with urgent debates about how such a reversal was possible. The humans used only 25 ships to defeat a Crimson Fleet force of 47 vessels, reported Admiral Corvex to the assembled council members. Their casualties were minimal while enemy losses were almost complete. War Marshal Grixtar of the Korthak Empire studied the battle reports with obvious confusion. His own forces had been devastated at Proxima using conventional tactics that had worked for centuries. The idea that humans had succeeded where his elite warriors had failed was difficult to accept. "How can this be accurate?" Grixtar demanded. "Human weapons are primitive, their ships are small, and their soldiers lack natural armor or enhanced strength." Counselor Vextra from the Nexus Collective had been analyzing human tactical data with the most advanced computers in Coalition space. The results challenged every assumption about military effectiveness that alien species had held for thousands of years. The humans did not win because of superior technology, Vextra explained to the council. They won because of superior adaptability. When their plans failed, they immediately developed new ones. When their equipment broke, they repaired it or found alternatives. Commander Zixathala had returned to Nexus Prime to give his personal report on human military capabilities. Standing before the same council that had laughed at Earth's offer of assistance, he now spoke with deep respect for the species he had once dismissed. I have witnessed human soldiers continue fighting with wounds that would incapacitate most of our warriors, Zixathala testified. I have seen them adapt to alien environments within hours and develop effective tactics against enemies they had never encountered before. The council listened with growing amazement as Zixathala described specific examples of human performance during the Battle of Altair Prime. He told them about Sergeant Major Thompson's squad holding off 200 attackers for 6 hours, about Staff Sergeant Johnson's impossible infiltration mission, and about Admiral Patterson's naval tactics that had confused and defeated experienced pirate commanders. Most remarkable of all, Zixathala concluded, was their response to casualties. When other species might retreat or surrender, humans became more determined to win. They seemed to draw strength from adversity rather than being weakened by it. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had been invited to address the council about her research into human evolutionary psychology. Her findings provided scientific explanations for the battlefield performance that had shocked alien observers. Earth is what you might call a hostile planet, Dr. Rodriguez explained to the alien dignitaries. Our evolution was shaped by ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and countless other catastrophes. Species that could not adapt quickly to changing conditions simply died out. She projected holographic images showing Earth's geological history, with its record of mass extinctions and environmental challenges that would have destroyed most civilizations. Humans developed psychological resilience as a survival mechanism, she continued. We learned to function effectively under extreme stress, to improvise solutions from available resources, and to maintain group cohesion even when facing overwhelming odds. The council members absorbed this information with growing understanding. The same characteristics that had made humans seem emotionally unstable and unreliable also made them incredibly effective in combat situations. Meanwhile, requests for human military assistance were arriving from coalition worlds throughout the galaxy. Admiral Patterson found himself coordinating joint operations with alien commanders who had previously refused to work with human forces. Captain Ben Clark was promoted to admiral and given command of a new coalition rapid response fleet. His flagship, the EDS Defiant, became the template for a new class of warships that combined human tactical concepts with coalition technology. The key is mobility and adaptability, Clark explained to alien naval officers during a strategy conference. Large ships with powerful weapons are impressive, but they are also predictable. Smaller, faster vessels can strike where the enemy least expects and retreat before they can respond effectively. Colonel Rodriguez established the first integrated training facility where human Marines worked alongside coalition soldiers from dozens of different species. The cultural differences were enormous, but the military effectiveness of combined units exceeded anything either side could accomplish independently. Humans teach us to think creatively under pressure, observed Captain Thrilvar of the Korthak Marines. We teach them to use advanced technology more effectively. Together, we become stronger than either species alone. The war against the Crimson Fleet entered a new phase as coalition forces adopted human tactical innovations. Instead of fighting massive set-piece battles, they conducted mobile campaigns that kept enemy forces off balance and unable to establish secure defensive positions. Staff Sergeant Johnson, now promoted to Master Sergeant, led a special operations unit that included volunteers from 6 different alien species. Their mission was to infiltrate pirate strongholds and eliminate key leadership figures before conventional forces began their assaults. The hardest part is teaching aliens to think like pirates, Johnson explained to his mixed species team. You have to be willing to fight dirty, take risks, and break rules that civilized militaries follow. The final battle of the war took place in the Proxima system, where the Crimson Fleet had established their primary headquarters after their initial victory over coalition forces. Admiral Patterson commanded a combined fleet of human and alien vessels in an assault designed to end pirate resistance permanently. But the real victory occurred on the surface of Proxima Centauri B, where Sergeant Major Thompson led a joint ground assault against the pirate command complex. Fighting alongside Korthak warriors, Nexus collective battle drones, and soldiers from a dozen other species, her unit accomplished what had seemed impossible just months earlier. The pirates surrender when they realize they cannot win, Thompson reported to Colonel Rodriguez. They are bullies who prey on the weak, but they have no stomach for fighting determined enemies. The Butcher of Proxima, the mysterious leader who had commanded the Crimson Fleet throughout the war, was captured alive during the final assault. His identity shocked Coalition intelligence services when they discovered he was actually a former Coalition admiral who had turned to piracy after being dismissed for excessive brutality. "We created our own enemy," admitted Admiral Corvex during the post-war analysis. "Our rigid military traditions and obsession with honorable combat left us vulnerable to opponents willing to fight without restraint." With the war over, the HFY Coalition Council faced the question of humanity's role in galactic civilization. The same species they had rejected for membership just 1 year earlier had proven essential to their survival. President Maria Santos traveled to Nexus Prime for the formal ceremony inducting Earth into the Coalition as a full member. The great council chamber that had once echoed with dismissive comments about human weakness now filled with applause as she took her seat among the galactic leadership. "Humanity brings unique strengths to our alliance," President Santos said in her acceptance speech. "We offer not just military capability, but also the adaptability and determination that comes from surviving on a world that constantly challenged us to become stronger." War Marshal Grickstar, who had once mocked human soldiers as weaklings, now stood to offer his personal apology and respect. "I have learned that true strength cannot be measured by physical appearance or technological advancement," Grickstar announced. "The humans possess something that our advanced civilizations had nearly forgotten, the warrior spirit that refuses to surrender regardless of the odds." Ambassador Tony Martinez was appointed as Earth's first permanent representative to the Coalition Council. His warnings about underestimating humanity had been proven correct, but he took no satisfaction in being right about something that had cost so many lives. "The greatest victory is not in battle," Martinez told the Council during his inaugural address. "The greatest victory is in understanding that every species has valuable contributions to make, regardless of how they might appear to others." In the months that followed, human colonies were established throughout Coalition space. Earth's population spread across dozens of worlds, serving as explorers, diplomats, scientists, and protectors of the galactic community. Dr. Rodriguez established research stations on worlds throughout the galaxy, studying alien life forms and helping to develop medical treatments that benefited all Coalition species. Her work proved that human curiosity and scientific methodology could be just as valuable as human military capability. Captain Nina Foster became the first human to command a mixed-species exploration fleet,